Hello there and welcome back to this Angular course. Feels like a TypeScript course at this point, but it's an Angular course, I promise. We're just about done with TypeScript here. Today we're going to be going over classes. So classes are one of the most important parts of TypeScript, and we're really going to be using them quite a bit when it comes to Angular, because every single component that we're going to have is going to be a class, or at least a class is going to be tying the component together. So, really important, let's go over classes. Okay, so creating classes. You can see, by the way, I did create a file for today's lesson. So to create a class is actually pretty simple. Just class, and then give it a class name. So since we are going to be using a class, and I am not original at all, we're going to be going ahead and creating a class car. Because I think every single programming tutorial in the world, when they go over classes, they create a car class. All right, class car, we have a class. There we go. We have a class. We created it. Awesome. All right, so we have this class. First of all, let's actually put something into this class. So let's just do number here. There we go. So we have this number here, and we can actually make it, we have this num property of this class, and we can make it number. There we go. It's going to be of type number. Number. There we go. All right, so now that we have this number field here, what we can go ahead and do is somehow instantiate this field. So to do that, we're going to create a constructor. In Angular, constructors are done by a constructor, the keyword constructor. In there, we're going to take in a number of type number. There we go. And inside that constructor, we're going to do this.num equals num. There we go. And we're going to set the value of this number here to whatever we pass into this constructor. There we go. So that's how we create constructors in TypeScript. If you don't know what a constructor is, it'll come up in just a moment here. That's going to be cleared up. All right, so we got our car class created. Let's go now and instantiate this class. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Lexus equals new car and pass in a number for the car. We're going to pass in 1. Let's don't forget var Lexus equals new car 1. And then now we can do is to print console.log Lexus.number. There we go. So one thing to note, this constructor here, if you do not know what this is, essentially this is just going to go ahead and be a method that is called when we instantiate this class. So we do new car here, and in between these two parentheses, that's going to go ahead, we're going to pass in a value. In this case, we're passing it into the constructor, and then that sets that value to this number here, to this num field of the class car. And so as a result, that gets passed into the new car is now assigned into the variable Lexus, which is now an object, and then we print the number of the car. So we can go and now run this. We're going to go ahead and run, we're going to go ahead and do node, we keep doing node, we need to do TSC, TypeScript compiler, 3.4.TypeScript. All right, there we go. And then now we just need to do node 3.4.JavaScript. And there we go, you can see now that we print 1. If we do have a look at the JavaScript output, you can see here that it creates a class for us, a function. Well, it creates a function for us, which inside has its own function, car, which takes in a number and then assigns the number to this function field. And so in result, this is now what we get. So that essentially is how that works in reference to the JavaScript. All right. So to create methods inside classes, so first of all, a method is essentially just a function that that's in a class. That's pretty much the widely accepted definition. So to create a method, you may have noticed that when we did create our field here for our class, we didn't actually add a var variable here. So if we try to do var num, it'll actually give us an error because it's treating, since this class, it does bear a slight reference to a JavaScript object, we can't actually use var. So actually this is just a field of the class. So this num number is just a field of the class, or as in JavaScript, a field of the object. And so we don't actually add this var on here. We just do num number since it is a field of the class. That is the syntax. And same goes for methods or functions. So to declare a method, we would just do the method name and then the definition. So for example, we could do print num. There we go. And then here we would just do console.log this.num. There we go. Simple as that. And then now we could just do, instead of doing console.log lexis.number, we would do lexis.printNum. There we go. Simple as that. So let's go ahead and compile and run. And there we go. You can see that we get the exact same output. And that is how we create methods. Now, of course, we can do everything with the methods that we can do with functions. So we can do, return type, number. So we can do return 1. We can take inputs, number, but I mean, that doesn't really make much sense, obviously, but we can take an input if we wanted to. So yeah, we could most certainly do that, but we're not going to in this specific example here. All right, there we go. Whoops, I actually need to also remove that and this also. There we go. Okay, so access modifiers allow us to change the level of access that we have to a specific field of our class. So we can actually apply them to the constructor, we can apply them to the to fields, and we can apply them to methods as well. So we can apply them to pretty much whatever we want. The default modifier is public, which essentially means that we can essentially use the field or method of that class wherever we want. We also have private. So private will just make it so that we can't access it directly. So if we try to do, let's see, lexis.num is equal to 1, we're actually going to get an error here. You can see that property num is private and only accessible with class car, within class car. So yeah, so we can't actually access it outside of the class, but we can access it inside of the class, as you can see. We also have a read-only, which makes it so that we can go ahead outside of the class, we can go ahead and read it, but we can't set it. So you can see that it has a constraint, is a constant, or a read-only property. There we go. So we can't actually assign anything to it, but we can go ahead and read it. So we can do var b equals lex.num. There we go. So yeah, we can read it, we just can't write to it. And then finally we have protected. So protected makes it so that we can go ahead and access, it's pretty much just like private, except we can also access it in classes that extend this class, which leads us into our next sort of part of this lesson, inheritance. Okay, so TypeScript does have built-in inheritance, and what we can go ahead and do here is create another class here. This is going to be class van, and we can make it extend car. Okay, and now this class van is going to have all the properties of car. So inside here we can, for example, do print num. Okay, so this is going to be override car. Override car is print num. Okay, and then inside there, what we can actually go ahead and do is console.log. First of all, let's actually make this, I actually capitalize it. It's supposed to be just regular number. Don't want to make it complex. Console.log. And then inside here, we can just go ahead and do this.num times 2. There we go. And so now we can do Lexis equals new van. This is going to be a Lexis van. And its number is going to be 2 multiplied by 2, obviously, because it's a van, it's bigger. Don't know what that has. What the number has anything to do with the size of the automobile, but it doesn't matter. So then we're going to go ahead and compile it and run it. And I forgot to do the lexis.printNum. Forgot to call the function method, not a function. There we go. Save that. Compile. Run. There we go. You can see now that it prints 2. So this is going to override what we have in this class car. And of course now, since this is protected, we can't access this in van. If we change this to private, then we cannot access this in van since it is now private. So that is the difference between protected and private.